All right, roll call. Call our meeting to order. Welcome everyone this afternoon, and we'll start with our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are in the lands of and surrounded by water, originally inhabited by indigenous peoples who have traveled this area since time immemorial. This territory is within the lands honored by the wampum treaties, agreements between the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee, Lenni, Lenape, and allied nations to peacefully share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Specifically, we'd like to acknowledge the presence of the Three Fires Confederacy, Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi and Huron-Wendat people. And we are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture while remaining committed to moving forward respectfully with all First Nation, Inuit, and Métis. Any disclosure or pecuniary interest on the agenda as presented to you this afternoon? Seeing none, we'll have that reflected in our minutes. Delegations, we'll start off with our Chief Administrative Officer. And so I'll relinquish the floor to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you all again. We are pleased to present you with the department orientation presentations this afternoon. They're all more or less the same format, and we've provided quite a bit of background information in the folder that clerks put together. We won't be obviously going through all of that today, but we'll tick through. Each presentation should be about 15 minutes long, and then there'll be an opportunity for you to have questions. I'll do mine from here, but each of the directors will sit at the delegate table to do their presentation. So on that note, I'll begin. Thank you. So the Chief Administrative Officer, CAO, is the only position that's appointed by council. My responsibilities are to provide advice and counsel to the mayor and council on administrative matters and to direct and coordinate general and administrative management of the town, as well as direct resources and act on council's strategic priorities. I lead the town's directors, and collectively we function as the town's senior management team. I also develop policies, implement corporate directives approved by council. We do the business plan and in support of service levels, fiscal responsibility, accountability, and transparency, and the business plans form the foundation for the operating and capital budgets. We ensure focus on quality customer service and maximize our ability to deliver on the town's programs and services. My department also it takes care of the Police Services Board and contract with the OPP. So I act as the secretary to the Police Services Board. And as you know, the policing is provided by the OPP with civilian oversight by the Police Service Board. Currently, the Police Service Board, is in the process of being struck again for the new term of council. It's constituted by 2 provincial appointees, 1 community appointee, and the mayor and 1 member of council. We are currently operating under the Police Services Act, as it's been revised since 1990, in the process of transitioning to the Community Safety and Policing Act, which was received royal assent in 2019. However, it has not yet been put into action. So the regulations are still under development, but we anticipate 2023 to be a transition year. And the first step of that will be to transition to detachment boards in Essex County. And we have proposed, locally, we have proposed 2 boards, one that would, that Tecumseh would be a member of with Lakeshore and Essex, the town of Essex, and then a second board in the south with Kingsville, Leamington, and Pelee Island. Next slide, please. Just some quick facts. The operating budget for 2022 is provided on the slide, and that's the totality of it, the CAO, council, and then all the policing budgets. Our senior management team meets at least twice monthly, and the Police Services Board meets 6 times annually. OPP calls for service in the order of just over 3,000 in 2021 for an average of 260 a month. Thank you. I don't know, Christine, if you can make that any bigger, but that would be appreciated. This is just an overview of the organizational, there we go, chart The functions, I won't go over those because I just took care of those in the past slides. These are all of the positions that report to me directly. They don't form part of my department, but they are my direct reports. So all of the directors from the departments, as well as the executive assistant to the CAO and the administrative assistant to mayor and council. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, there we go. Thank you. This slide here, just I think provides you with a pictorial illustration of all of the services that are offered by the town and the sum total of all of the FTEs, the full-time equivalent employees. Each of the departments will go into in more detail what they do and what they deliver, but this is the structure, the hierarchy, with myself as the head of staff and all of the directors with their areas of responsibility listed in this chart. Next slide, please. Current projects for 2019 to 2022 strategic plan implementation. We have focused on the capital priorities for the public works and engineering services and the community and recreation services departments, the Tecumseh Lakeshore economic development strategy, and then other local economic development opportunities as they've arisen over that period of time. We've also advocated on several occasions with senior government to secure capital funding for Tecumseh's growth-related strategies, as well as flood mitigation strategies. And we're responding to the housing priority and other provincial policy initiatives affecting the town. The community safety and well-being plan implementation also falls within our purview, and we're making inroads into implementing that in conjunction with the City of Windsor and the other area municipalities of Essex County. Next slide, please. We are still in the process of implementing the organizational review that was completed in 2021 with the assistance of KPMG. Particularly, we're working on the customer service recommendations, still a bit of structure and staffing recommendations still to implement, and then service delivery efficiencies that have been subject to corollary reviews, such as the people strategy, the information technology services review, the ensuing digital strategy and business continuity and disaster recovery strategy, a payroll services review, and clerk services reviews. So all of those are in the process of being implemented, and the individual directors will speak to those in more detail. In terms of future projects, clearly, as mentioned, we'll be implementing the changes arising from the Community Safety and Policing Act with the new detachment board structure over the coming year, and other regulatory changes that we expect to come out of the policing legislation. We'll renew our efforts to address climate change and focus on sustainability, and continue with the implementation of the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. Next slide, please. We'll be with the support of the whole senior management team, will be supporting council in developing the new corporate strategic plan and priorities for the new term of office. And then we will report out annually on those corporate strategic priorities, as we have done in the past term. We will be working to progress the town's relationship building with our Indigenous community, as was started in a fairly significant way in 2022. And we'll also carry out the biennial customer satisfaction survey, which is carried forward from 2022. And we have a records and information management strategy that's underway. That should be completed shortly, and we'll look to implement that on approval by council. Next slide. So, as I mentioned, in the folder that the Legislative and Clerk Services Department has put together, there's a number of policies. They're all organized by department, so they're there for your reference. And then I think the next slide is just my, next couple slides, it's just my contact information. And I think, professional services providers also provided for each department in their respective presentations, so that you have a sense of kind of who does what on a regular basis for the town. And there's the contact information. So I can stop there. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to take those now, Mr. Mayor.
Just on the community safety and the division of public safety, do we have police representation in there too? I see fire is all there. Is there police in these meetings and stuff like that? You know what I mean?
So through the mayor to the councillor, for the community safety and well-being plan, absolutely. Both the OPP and Windsor Police were involved with that, and they are involved, our OPP are involved in implementation activities as well.
Okay, and then under the, I know they're not, they're definitely in the organizational chart of being under our division, but I'm sure, I mean, we get, what I'm asking is we are getting police input in public safety. It looks like it's just a fire public safety, but it's all encompassing public safety, correct?
It's all encompassing public
Thank
safety.
you.
Can I ask also for council, put your phones down while we're having our meeting, and so that we can certainly show respect and also adhere to what's being said. So let's park our phones.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good afternoon, members of council. The position of clerk resides in the Legislative and Clerk Services Department. The department is undergoing a transition resulting in the organizational review, as mentioned by Marg, and the Clerk Services Review, which for the first time will have in-house legal counsel to support council and all the departments except for human resources. The department will be divided and is divided into two main service areas, which is the clerk services and legal services. Next slide, please. The clerk fulfills a statutory role under Section 228 of the Municipal Act, which outlines the roles and responsibilities of the position, including recording all resolutions and decisions, along with other proceedings of council, records all the votes, and maintains the original copies of all bylaws and minutes of the proceedings of council. The clerk also maintains the corporate record and establishes records management programs, procedures, and policies for record disposition. Other clerk's functions is that we process requests under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, which is also known as MFIPA, to assist with the Information and Privacy Commissioner on complaints and formal investigation. The department also acts as a commissioner of oaths and maintains vital statistics. It also, as you are aware, just recently we conducted and managed the municipal and school board elections. We also provide committee and council meetings services for the following. Standing committees of council, such as the Policies and Priority Committee. We also do statutory committees as outlined there, and as well as advisory committees. We also provide professional advice to council and committee members on procedural matters, ensure meetings are open to the public unless they are allowed to be closed by legislation under Section 239, and to assist the town's closed meeting investigator, who is the Ontario Ombudsman, if necessary. We also provide an exciting week for Local Government Week with public education. Some of the legal functions that we will now be doing in the department is legislative compliance and policy development, which we've always been doing. We're just sectioning it out. Sorry. Let me just continue on with the clerk functions, because I don't want to not say what we don't do here. So we oversee all the compliance for liquor licensing. We do animal control and dog tag licensing. So this will actually be transitioning over to external service provider for efficiencies in online pet registration through DocuPet and dog tag compliance and a lost pet service, which is something that we've been looking into, and you'll be hearing more about that very soon. The cat intake and cat spay or neuter voucher program that we have here at the town. This will also be transitioning in 2023 with a partnership with the Windsor Essex Humane Society to administer these programs subject to budget approval. We also do licensing for C gaming, which is also the electronic bingo hall and raffles. So one of the things that will be changing with C gaming is actually the bingo hall is going to be relocating to the municipality of Lakeshore, which is currently underway, and it looks like they will be moving out by March, which will have an effect on our services that we provide and will reduce our lottery services by about 80%. We also coordinate corporate policy and procedural reviews. So some of the legal functions that we will be doing is we ensure legislative compliance with the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, AODA. So we develop a multi-year plan and an annual plan, as well as policy development. We conduct and gather information pertaining to legal matters, court actions, potential actions, and provide advice and support on legal matters to council and to all departments. We do administration of real estate transactions and holdings. We negotiate and prepare routine acts and agreements. We do general legal administration on behalf of the corporation, including the ongoing lottery litigation. We manage claims against the municipality with the town's issuer. And we also provide policy review, analysis, and research of council-directed initiatives. Some quick facts that we have put together. Our operating budget, as you can see there, is 500,075. I can't talk today, sorry. Thank you. We have provided a list of all our committees and boards, which you are currently reviewing some of those applications. And as you can see, some of the council and committee services that we have provided. So we prepare about 68 council meetings and agendas, which you will become very familiar at. And you can see the list right there of the different breakdown of our meetings. Next slide, please. And some of our committee meetings that we have prepared, just to note that this is 2021 and the statistics there, and not all of our committees were meeting at the time due to COVID. Next slide. Some licensing quick facts for you. So we have animal control. So we do about 1,200 dog tags annually. We hope to get that up a little bit with our new, hopefully, DocuPet program that's coming through. Cat spay or neuter voucher programs, we do about 95 of them annually. And as well as the cat intake program, as you can see some of the stats there. Next slide. Vital statistics, we do anywhere from 80 to 100 marriage licenses annually, as well as marriage services, which is your ceremonies. We do roughly about 15 a year. And death registrations, we process about 600 annually. And that number fluctuates depending on the year. Lottery licensing, so we have 25 permits, which are to charities for RC gaming, and raffles, we do about 30 licensing. And in those licensing, staff will review their financial reporting for compliance and to make sure that they're using the proceeds from those games to the items that they have laid out in their license. Records management. We have a records management, which is governed by our records retention bylaw, which governs our paper and electronic records. And in 2018, we brought in the Shred It service, which is our confidential shredding service provider, and it has helped us save 122 trees. And also the municipal elections, which help us conduct the municipal elections, and was reported out at the last meeting, where 28.72% of voter turnout, which is one of our lowest in recent histories. Next slide. So our department organization chart, as you can see in the green, Christina, if you could blow that up a little bit more, that would be great. Our Director of Legislative Services and Clerk, that position is currently vacant, and I am in the acting capacity at the time. We have 2 deputy clerks, myself, which is the Deputy Clerk and Manager of Legislative Services, and over here to my right is Christina, who is the Deputy Clerk, Clerk Services and Policy Advisor. And then we have 3 others officers. We have an administrative assistant to the director. We have a council and committee assistant and a licensing assistant as well. And we have a University of Windsor intern every year. Next slide, please. Our current projects, which we are excited and looking forward to doing, is we're currently reviewing all the advisory committees, and we'll be providing a recommendation to council very soon. We're also looking at streamlining efficiencies, such as licensing services, including taxi, dog licensing, marriage licensing, as you can see, the cat spay or neuter programs, and the burial permits. And this is all coming out of the clerk's service delivery review that was conducted earlier this year. So we are really looking at some of our programs, and we'll be reporting out to you very shortly on some of the ideas that we have. We are going to finish completing the corporate record and information management service review, and that should be coming shortly with some recommendations on how to move forward with that. We are continuing with our council orientation, such as today, and we'll be moving into more specific orientations around procedural bylaw and MFIPA, just for more understanding of what those two pieces involved, as well as we're going to be implementing webcasting and closed captioning through our actual agenda manager, which is eScribe. So we'll slowly start showing you that software and how to use all the features of it as members of council. Our future projects and what we're looking forward to here is finishing off that review on records management and bring those recommendations to council for your consideration and approval. We're also looking at bringing forward mobile food vendoring licensing program, which we're hoping to target to implement for the spring, early summer, so that we can get that season through. And we are going to go through a review of some of our bylaws, and every year moving forward, we're going to do a few bylaws a year that need some review and revamp. And so next year, we're looking at the procedural bylaw. We're going to be looking at the appointments bylaw, the delegations of authority bylaw, and the noise bylaw. And those were a few bylaws that were highlighted in our clerk service delivery review. And so those are the ones that we are tackling first. There was much more, but we've got to pick and choose. And then the following year, I'll have more to come forward at that time. Another thing that we will be looking at is we're going to be reviewing the mandates of all the non-statutory committees. So this is your Cultural and Arts Committee, Senior Advisory Committee, the Youth Advisory Committee, the Rural Broadband Advisory Committee, and the Lakeshore Tecumseh Intermunicipal Committee. We will also investigate the merits of introducing an administrative monetary penalty system to the town to augment some of the enforcement of our bylaws. And we will review and coordinate internal and external legal counsel services. I have outlined, and in our folders that I've set up for everyone under the legislative services, you'll find all of these policies. Anything that has a link to it, you can currently just link on, hit those specific titles, and you'll be able to go. Those are the ones that are currently online on our website. As well as any plans are also in there, and any bylaws that you may encounter. And I'm available for any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question, Jen, at County Council, and I believe Lakeshore, they record votes based on a new program that they just introduced, which I thought was cool. Is that something that, in terms of future project, that most municipalities are going towards to make it easy for your record keeping? Because I thought it was kind of interesting, but I don't know if it's time consuming or not. But what's the general feel of other municipalities in this regard?
Through your worship, that is part of what we were looking at. It is through our eScribe software, which is our agenda management software. It is one of the modules that we can look into on whether or not we want to add that option. But we're going to start first with the just trying to get in our webcasting and closed captioning, and then I can definitely look into that option if that is per council's direction. We can definitely look into that.
Thank you.
Further? Go ahead, Councillor Houston.
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you, to, I guess, all administration. I just wanted to make the comment. I found very helpful the format which all of the information is available in Microsoft. And I know we recently did a transition to, I guess 365, but I've just found for myself the ease of going in and now looking for, policies or, having one resource. I think the format is great. So I just wanted to pass along my appreciation to everyone that's put time in to make this accessible for everybody. But I think it's a great resource for us all. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Higginson.
Thank you very much. I'm looking at it's my slide 15, although I don't know which slide of 174 it is. It's about the review of bylaws. You mentioned there's in here 3 that I think came by way of the review. Is there a regular cycle of review of bylaws, or is this something that we're kind of implementing as a regular cycle? So will things come through a kind of regular, and then do those just come to council, or did it come to a committee first?
Through your worship, we are now going to be starting an annual review. So every year I will have a list of ones that we will try to tackle every year in order to keep more up to date and current with some of our bylaws for sure.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Supplementary. So as Jen pointed out in her presentation, the clerk services review was conducted in over the past year. And the consultants pointed out a number of our bylaws that could use a little sprucing up. So Jen is prioritizing based on that list. The first one you see there is your bylaw, the council procedural bylaw. And our normal practice there is to strike a subcommittee of council to do that deep dive into the procedural bylaw and come back with recommendations for the greater for all of council to consider. We also have, as Jen pointed out, a policies and priorities committee. So for those meatier subjects like policies and bylaws, we can bring those to those special committee meetings so that they aren't trying to be managed in the course of the regular agenda when you've got 16 other reports that you're trying to deal with that same night.
Nothing else. Okay, thank you very much. Financial services.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of council. Okay, so I'm going to present for Financial Services Department. So the department is responsible for all the financial affairs of the municipality, and that includes financial and accounting support services to both internal and external clients. We are tasked with managing the town's financial resources in a fiscally responsible and prudent manner, ensuring internal controls are in place and that we comply and that we are in compliance with all legislation and regulations. So currently, the department is going through some changes following the organizational review completed in 2021. So recommended from that review that directly impacts financial services were the addition of a third management position in the form of a second deputy treasurer. So the org review identified staffing shortages within the organization when comparing to many metrics and evident within financial services management. The position was filled in June, and our new deputy treasurer, Vanessa, is fully immersed in the role and is working away on the 2023 budget document as we speak. The review also identified the potential for both financial clerks to form part of the customer service representative staff. So this recommendation would see potentially one or both of the financial clerks making part of that four-member team of CSRs. And that would have a dual reporting structure. So that's reporting to customer service and to financial services. So this dual reporting structure will impact our department to some extent. It is expected that the CSRs would maintain core financial services duties related to property taxation, so billing, collection, tax roll maintenance, et cetera, along with some other of their financial services duties. However, to what extent that the change to their responsibilities is yet to be resolved. Aside from the org review, we have seen considerable change to personnel and positions within the department the last 3 years. Retirements, resignations, leaves of absence, promotions, temporary staff and new hires. The change has been steady and has put us behind in some areas, financial reporting and procurement primarily. However, we do seem to be stabilizing. We are hopeful that we can get to our full complement back in 2023, and where we'll play some catch up. And I do want to commend the financial services team for their dedication and commitment and professionalism the past few years, because it has been a pretty demanding stretch. So the next 2 slides have some excerpts from the Municipal Act that state the role of the treasurer. So here you'll basically see some customary financial duties of collections, remittances, investments, debt, and reporting, all captured here. So if we go to the next slide, please, Christina. Yep. So the next 2 slides identify the major functions of the department and break them out into 2 categories, one being budget and revenue, and the other being financial operations and reporting. These 2 categories generally align with our 2 deputy treasurer positions and new department structure following the org review. However, the distribution of tasks and responsibilities is still a bit of work in progress. So you take it with a grain of salt, those listings as they're categorized. And many of those functions will involve all of the management staff. So with respect to budget and revenue, primary responsibilities include the annual business plan and budget development. So this includes coordination of the budget process with all departments. It's quite a lengthy process that typically starts in August and ends in December or January. It ultimately sets the tax rate, the municipal levy, and property taxes. Capital life cycle planning. So this is part of our budget process. However, coordination with departments for development of 5-year capital plans generally follows our formal budget adoption process. So this includes longer-term financial analysis and focuses on sustainability. Budget document. This is one of the town's primary communication devices. Our budget document is a recipient of the GFOA Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for 13 consecutive years, which we're pretty proud of. It includes contributions from all departments and significant commitment from all finance team members. Budget variance reporting. So we do 3 variance reports throughout the year, and those reports are provided to council. Property taxation. This includes the generation, distribution, and collection of property taxes. It also includes collection of county and provincial education levies and remittance to both of those bodies. Water and wastewater rates and revenue. This includes annual setting of water and wastewater rates. It's supported by our in-house developed water and wastewater rate study. Billing and collection is coordinated through our arrangement with Essex Power. Corporate fees and charges. So this is includes the review and setting of user rates, which is coordinated annually through finance. And we have asset management listed here. So this is another significant study that is now led by Public Works, however, with considerable involvement of finance. So this is critical for long-term planning, sustainability planning, annual budget considerations, grant funding opportunities, and more. So with financial operations and reporting, we have financial statements. So there's internal financial reporting. We have audited financial statements annually. This includes keeping up with financial reporting standard updates. So we have one that we're facing this year. So asset retirement obligations, that's the latest PSAB change and will have to be incorporated in our 2023 statements. And then there's also external financial reporting. So by way of the financial information return, so that is a standard financial reporting format for the province. Payroll is administered weekly through our department for all the town's employees, and the weekly employee count ranges from about 110 to 250 during peak summer months. Accounts payable and accounts receivable, we have them grouped together here. However, they're quite different functions. Accounts payable includes vendor invoice processing and payments. So we operate on a weekly payment run basis. AR here would include trade receivables. Procurement, so this includes compliance with trade agreements and regulations. It's governed by our corporate bylaw and policy. It's a heavily legislated area. Its primary objectives are to receive best value for tax dollars in an open, fair, and transparent manner. grant management and reporting. This area involves coordination with all departments and various grant programs and agencies. There's a significant amount of reporting and communication requirements involved, transfer payment agreements, of course, which council sees regularly. Grants tend to be unpredictable in nature with respect to timing, amount, and eligibility. So you'll see this ebb and flow of the activity here. Also included insurance and benefits renewals. That's a corporate annual exercise, investments in cash management. So primary focus with investments is compliance with legislative requirements, safety and liquidity. Return is secondary. This is guided. Investments are guided by our policy, which does allow for a mix of investment terms. We have begun to expand the past several years with some success. Long-term debt management. So this involves coordination with lending bodies, typically the province for us, especially for any borrowing greater than 5 years. The annual repayment limit is something we have to stick by. That's set by the province, and that is the maximum debt allowed for a municipality. And I've got internal controls as well. So that includes segregation of duties, includes fraud detection, cyber attacks, things of that nature. So we have a few slides with some quick facts. So I won't go through all of these numbers. I just want to highlight a few. So one on this first page, life cycle capital planning. So you'll note approximately 15 million annual allocation. That's through taxes and rates with a 32 million capital expenditure plan. So this underscores the focus of council's strategic priorities on some major capital expenditures in the coming, well, this was 2022 data, but that's going to be a main focus in the next 5 years. Salaries and benefits, I think, are 2 slides next, and that's 12.4 million. So this is a significant part of our overall operating budget of 26 million. And then on the next slide, I have investments. There we are. So here we want to highlight, I guess, the success of the, investments highlights the success of the town's life cycle plan and 5-year capital plan. So we have healthy reserve position, certainly better than most. However, our asset management plan does, which was recently completed, identifies an annual funding shortfall of about $3 million. And long-term debt management, our annual repayment limit, which I referenced earlier. So our current limit, our current position is about 5%, which is well within the provincial limit. So next slide, we have our organization chart. So we have just under 11 full-time equivalent positions in finance. For each of those positions identified, there's one of each, with the exception of financial analyst, where we have 2, and financial clerks, where we have 2. So it's a pretty lean operation with pretty much one person responsible for entire functions within the department. Current projects, I've highlighted 4 primary projects. So one is our payroll process review. So we initiated a third-party review as part of municipal modernization program intake 2 in 2021. So we're currently in the midst of our financial systems optimization review, which followed that initial review. We're looking for recommendations either late this year or first quarter 2023. So we anticipate some recommendations out of that review with respect to our current system, operating system, but we also anticipate requirement for time and attendance software or solution, and that will be a big endeavor, and that will involve or impact everyone. Budget software upgrade. So this was initiated in 2021. We did hit a roadblock with our GL structure when we were looking to do our upgrade. So we found that we had to do some changes to our GL structure. We basically, which that requires some reconfiguration. We put it on hold for 2022 because of some staffing vacancies, but we want to pick that up in 2023 in time for the 2024 budget process. Next, we have budget and GL realignment. So we have a cost center review to conduct this year, and we also want to accommodate realignment of budget format and department responsibilities. Water and wastewater rate study. So this is developed in-house. It's currently in a final draft position. We did have some minor adjustments following council's capital planning exercise in the spring of 2022. This will guide rates through to 2025. And we plan to present the study with recommendations to council in Q1 of 2023 for adoption. And for future projects, we've listed 3 of the bigger ones here. So development charge background study is due for an update in 2024. It seems like we just finished. So we'll commence that late in 2023, and that's in coordination with several departments here at the town. Asset management plan. So there's several phases to the asset management plan update. So we want to complete phase 2 in 2023, and that's in coordination primarily with Public Works and Parks. And building operations and reserve financial review. So we need to conduct an update of our building code operating costs. So that's in light of a proposed service level changes and permit fee structure changes that were presented to council last council meeting and will be included in the 2023 budget. So then we listed some policies, bylaws, and plans here, and I think these would have all been provided to council members. I think of note, I would say the procurement bylaw and policy, I think we'll have a presentation for council in probably January or so. And then the other one that I would highlight is the finance framework. So that's a nice policy that covers all functions of the department. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them now.
Questions? I got 2. Number, when we made reference earlier about looking at doing the bylaws and having a subcommittee. I've mentioned in that, and I think it's a great idea in dealing with that. But I would add to that, and many of the organizations that I've been involved with, past, present, and so forth, whether it's health unit, AMO, board at the hospital, and so forth, they've always had kind of what they call governance committee to deal with bylaws, number one, also audit, like an audit committee and so forth. And so I'm just going to throw it out there in that regards too, that those could be, maybe certainly an opportunity, because I'm looking at it's quite a, I don't want to say a buffet of different things that are there, but I'm thinking that this might be certainly an opportunity. Because in particular, when we really sit down and look at, the whole operation as a whole, and that it's done primarily during budget and as we move forward. But there was always some stuff in like looking into the future and that I have an interest with, and you did, you reflected in here where we stand in terms of our money management, in terms of what we have in reserves and cash at hand at 67 million in that. But there was, I remember when we had done the early offerings of the asset management program and life cycle program, and that we kind of identified, as we grow, the reserves and so forth, and that at certain intervals we'd reach certain amount. So the second part, my question there would be, to your opinion, Tom, are we on course and meeting those challenges? Because we always hear a little bit like the wastewater's a little behind, or other pieces of it are a little behind and so forth. But overall, I mean, we seem to be migrating in the right direction. It's not like we're falling behind in certainly in that regard. So in your opinion, are we meeting, kind of those future targets that we anticipated we were gonna hit?
Yeah, so like what I can say is that with the original life cycle plan, we had set targets. So we did achieve those annual allocation targets. I think it was in 2014, and it was within the 10-year plan. Since then, those targets,
maybe I didn't make myself understand. I think council understands that, but it's just on the monies and the buckets, the reserve funds and the cap. Because I remember it kept, after year X, it'll be this, after year X, and then we projected into the future what those reserves. I think I know we met the targets in 14, We've added another bucket, the new assessments and so forth. We put inflationary pieces to try to maintain those buckets of money. But what I'm getting at too is on those buckets of money, those reserves, which are to pay for the future replacement costs. Are we meeting those targets?
So the best guide for that is the asset management plan. So when we look, because the asset management plan looks out 10 years, and that includes replacement of existing assets and also accounts for growth. The asset management plan does not include all categories. However, our second version did include most of our categories. So that would be the best guide to tell us whether we're on target or not. So our asset management plan recently updated identified an annual funding shortfall. So that really takes all your expenditures and revenues looking out 10 years and brings it to a present value and says, okay, well, how do we stand today? So if it were today, what it shows is that we have a funding shortfall of about $3 million. So that sounds like a lot. It is a lot of money. However, we have to also take into consideration that we do not account for grant funding that we anticipate there has to be some. Senior levels of government have indicated a shared responsibility for municipal infrastructure. So we know that they have to contribute something. We don't know what. So that's really a question mark in the plan. So having a shortfall of $3 million is not, we'd like it to be lower, but 3 million, I would say, is not something that would be a caution or concern with proceeding with our plan.
Yeah, my point. Yeah, I wouldn't lose sleep over it only because probably the higher, if you look at the 400 municipalities out there, we're at the top, near the top, so I think we're in pretty good shape. And even to our surrounding around our neighbors, I would say that we're at the top in that regard. So then that would lead me to the question as we move forward, and this is for the benefit, especially for the new members, is there a time? I know we look at reevaluating ourselves in terms of where we're at and that, but looking at okay, what is the next phase of that we need in terms of a study to get us, say, to start eating away of that 3 million and so forth. So is it just basically adding to what we've already established ourselves, or looking at doing a study in terms of where we should be 5 years from now and 10 years from now?
Well, I'd say there, Mr. Mayor, is that there are several studies that contribute to our financial planning. So there's the development charge study. So that's coming up. The water wastewater rate study looks at water and wastewater infrastructure. So looks at operating and capital activities. So that helps guide us as far as our capital reserve funding requirements and rates for water and wastewater. Development charge focuses entirely on growth. So that's a component of our capital expenditures in the future. So what that identifies to us, that's updated every 5 years. That will identify the municipal portion or municipal obligation of those capital projects. So that gives us an idea. We use that figure when we evaluate our new infrastructure levy amount. So that'll be that one's coming up again soon. So we'll update our nil annual target. And then, as I mentioned, the asset management plan, which is done also every 5 years, but there's more frequent updates right now. That looks at all of our capital infrastructure, core infrastructure. And then we also have our own annual budget process. So we look at, all the departments provide their capital expenditure requirements, their revenues, and their projections going out 10 years. The council will see the 5-year plan, often will extend beyond 5 years in-house.
Okay, and I'll just finish with obviously the study is going to be important now, especially on Bill 23, what the impacts are going to be, especially on development charges. Still to this day, it's like we don't know, and so there's a huge worry, and especially in the province when there's going to be this is through AMO's study, a $5 billion shortfall in revenues spread out over 444 municipalities. So 5 billion is a lot of money. But anyway, thank you. And we're in good hands. You know, we're in excellent hands. So well done. Yes, go ahead, Counselor.
Thank you very much. Thanks for this. It was really helpful for me, especially leading into budget, which I'll admit is like a impending doom for me a little bit. But it's a really lean department, like very lean. I was kind of surprised at that. And it's a lot that you're managing in there. And so I wonder, you did mention that kind of grants, you really don't know when those come in, what the sort of scope of those things are, what the timelines of them are. And with several kind of plans that overlap, is there any risk to having such a lean department in that I'm thinking of the grant that just came in for DMAP funding? It must have been huge. And is there any risk in having such a lean department that some of those timelines can't be met, or you have to stretch out some of those pieces? And is there any kind of opportunity to look at, I recognize that legislative has an intern. Is there anything like that your department is looking into for closing some of those gaps that just sort of come up?
And through the mayor to Councillor Higgison. So what I would say to that is we do have we have a budget allowance for our student. So we do make use of a co-op student during the summer, which doesn't necessarily help with grants, but helps ease some of our other duties within the department, usually during summer. And grants, yes, they come in spurts and it can be demanding. The one thing that we've always done, and we've found that there's always cooperation as long as we communicate with the senior levels of government. Extensions, when it comes to reporting, can be accommodated in most cases as long as we're communicating with them. And we found, from my experience, they've been good to work with. I mean, the reporting is demanding, can be tedious, and I think they recognize that. And I think that's probably why they are generally pretty accommodating. So we've managed. It is difficult. It is sometimes something that gets pushed a little later than we like to get it done, but we've managed to do it. It is a challenge for us, but I think the extra deputy, the addition of that extra management position, which really isn't, fully operational just yet. She's just started. She's, done great so far, but she'll take on more duties as she gets a little more tenure in, and that should really benefit us.
Go ahead.
I just want to add to Tom's response that as part of the capital growth plan, there is another financial analyst proposed for his department that will specifically focus on the growth related financial considerations, including any grant monies that we are eligible for and administering those as part of that 5 to 10 year growth plan.
Okay, anything further? If not, thank you. And who's on deck? Community safety. Chief?
Thank you, Worship, and through you to the members of council. Community safety incorporates the traditional fire department as well as other enforcement functions. As you'll see when I go through the slides. You'll see the traditional duties of a fire department, fire prevention, which includes things like code enforcement, public education, plans review and inspection, emergency response duties, structural, all sorts of fires, vehicle and industrial extrication, flood preparedness and rescue, which does include now the only high water vehicle in the county. And it also includes tiered medical response through agreement with Essex Windsor EMS. One of our other main duties is emergency management. We're responsible for compliance with the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. That includes the emergency response plan for the town and maintenance thereof, the annual emergency preparedness exercise and staff training. It also includes a coordination of Emergency Operations Center during an emergency, and training and coordination of the Emergency Management Program Committee. As I mentioned, through the organizational review that was completed, we now look after bylaw enforcement. There's one bylaw enforcement officer that resides at Town Hall. He is responsible for enforcement of municipal bylaws and provincial legislation, most recently the COVID regulations. We also look at the updating of bylaws that he deals with, as well as enforcement through contractors for the rodent abatement and animal control. And a large part of his time is spent with investigation of complaints and enforcement through the various methods that are available. The organizational chart you can see, as far as full-time staff, it's myself as fire chief, 2 deputy chiefs, now 2 fire prevention officers, the bylaw enforcement officer, and fire clerk. And then our suppression staff is entirely volunteer, which includes 8 captains and 42 firefighters. One of the captains is designated as our training coordinator. For department deployment, fire and rescue operates out of 2 stations. The first one being Fire Hall 1, which is just next door here on Les Bronce Road. That's where my office, the 1 deputy chief of compliance, the fire prevention clerk, and 1 fire prevention officer. That's where they're stationed. Within that station, 4 captains and 17 firefighters respond, and there's 3 apparatus. Fire Station 2 is our other station. It's located out on Walker Road. The deputy chief of operations, the other fire prevention officer, and a complement of 4 captains and 17 firefighters respond out of that station. And there are 4 apparatus stationed there. Our bylaw enforcement officer currently works out of Town Hall, and he's assisted by the planning clerk, who spends time doing the administrative functions for bylaw enforcement. Just some quick facts. Our annual operating budget is in the neighborhood of 1.7 million. Our capital budget varies considerably year to year, but typically is fairly small. You can see the 2022 amount there, about $92,000. You'll notice when the budget comes forward for 2023, it's significantly higher. That's due to a project that I'll mention later that's coming up for next year. Our emergency response is about plus or minus 400 calls per year. Bylaw related complaints is about 300 per year. Our public education events, which now after COVID is back on track, it's about 54 events per year, which includes everything from the Fire Prevention Week to the school visits, hall tours, pretty much everything you can think of with a smiling child involved. And in addition, our fire prevention officers completed 170 inspections since starting this year. And I will mention that both those fire prevention officers are new in their positions in 2023 as well. For current and future projects, the RFP for our community risk assessment and strategic master plan just closed fairly recently. We're evaluating the submissions, and we'll have hopefully have a successful candidate selected soon. The intent of that study is to have the recommendations available for the 2024 budget process by the end of the summer in 2023. And they'll have, obviously, that plan typically has recommended improvements and timelines for those implementations of those improvements. The capital project that I mentioned is the replacement of the countywide radio system. The current provider has reached the end of life for the system, and we're looking at revising a replacement system for the county, which includes a number of municipalities throughout the county. Also coming up this year, you'll see a revised emergency response plan. It'll be completely revised and brought forward to council for consideration early in 2023. And also we have apparatus replacement, which is done on a life cycle basis. There's one tender out now for replacement of an aerial truck and future units going forward. Just listed some of our typical external service providers. Windsor Fire does a lot of our emergency dispatch currently. Our 911 public safety access point is actually provided by contract through the county. That is going out for tender as well currently. And the radio system I already mentioned. We also are in agreement with the other county fire departments for mutual aid, where we provide services back and forth at no cost to either one. And we have Windsor Fire as our hazmat response team. We're fortunate enough to have them as our team. They are a provincial response team. So if, regardless of the size of the incident, they're fairly readily available and right next door. For apparatus maintains our trucks for us. They are almost ready with their USAR team, which is Urban Search and Rescue. Once that team is up and running in Windsor, it'll be available through the mutual aid to the rest of the county. And we also rely somewhat on the town solicitor for bylaw issues and prosecutions where necessary. That's my presentation, and I'm open for questions if there are any.
Go ahead, Deputy.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, on one of the slides, you mentioned the historic fire truck. Is that the Optimus truck that you're referring to in that slide?
Through the worship to Deputy Mayor. No, it's the 1942 that's in our Station 1.
Okay.
The Optimus
So
truck.
there's two.
I'm familiar. Yeah, that's a different vehicle.
That's a different, okay, thank you.
Through you to the fire chief. Looking here, we've got the community risk assessment and the strategic fire master plan coming next year. I guess at a high level, I'm just wondering when we have all the growth, which is poised over the next 5 years or so. I think I'm kind of answering the question in my mind right now, but I'm assuming, we will get the information that we will see our department as it is today. And then with accounting for all the growth that'll happen, the investments and changes we will have to put into the department in order to maintain our service. Can you describe just at a high level? And I know we don't have those numbers, but if we're on track, what sort of possible investments that we will see? Will we potentially have to add another fire hall? I'm just wondering what we might be looking at when we have the growth that is expected, just at a high level.
Yeah, and through your worship to Councillor Houston, I don't want to predispose any results of the study by any means, but I will say that the study, although it hasn't started yet, it does look at future growth. It looks at response times. It looks at absolutely everything, and future growth includes industries that may come into town. It may, high-rise buildings, mid-rise buildings. It looks at the whole gambit of things that could impact our department operations. So it's really very hard to say at the moment what the results would be of that study. So I really don't want to predispose anything about the study. So if that's.
Any further questions? Here are none. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. I was just thinking about that. We're halfway through, so before we ask Mr. Anthony, we're going to take 5 minutes health break, and you want to freshen your coffee or water, pop, and we'll reconvene in about 5 or so. Okay, our next up is Mr. Anthony with the Community and Recreation Services.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of council. So the overview, the Community and Recreation Services Department offers the community a wide variety of leisure, recreation venues, and opportunities. There are 3 main divisions to our department: the Parks and Horticulture, Facilities and Energy Management, and also recreation programs and events. We're committed to enhancing the quality of life and livability for the residents by providing parks and recreation programs, activities, and facilities for the maximum benefit of the entire community. supporting the development of a healthy, vibrant Tecumseh by providing accessible, affordable, quality programming for a range of age groups. Working with and supporting local community groups and organizations, provide leadership, guidance, support for a wide range of sport, recreation, and leisure opportunities, and minimizing energy consumption and costs without affecting the delivery of municipal services and lowering the town's carbon footprint are certainly our goal. The Parks and Horticultural Department. We take care and maintain of all open spaces. We have 41 parks totaling 360 acres and flower beds, hanging baskets, trees found on public property, natural areas, dog park. We also are care and maintenance of all outdoor sports facilities, baseball diamonds, soccer fields, pickleball courts, tennis courts, etc. And care and maintenance of all playground equipment, outdoor workout equipment, skate park, park interior trails, signage, waste and recycling, receptacles, and benches. The Facilities and Energy Management Division, they provide technical expertise and project management for facility design, construction, commissioning, capital replacements, and repairs and maintenance of town buildings in an energy efficient, fully accessible, and sustainable manner. Coordinates contract services for all town buildings. That's anything from custodian to HVAC services. Maintain outdoor washrooms, splash pads, and pavilions. Lead for the town's energy conservation and demand management plan, OREG 39 or 397-11. We oversee and maintain the Tecumseh Arena and Recreation Complex featuring 2 regulation size ice surfaces, operational year round. We manage contracted canteen service during the fall winter service, which we just implemented, and I can tell you it's going over very well. Recreation programs and events. Just to highlight, the summer day camp program provides supervised recreational programming and childcare for children's age 5 to 12 and employment opportunities for up to 8 students. Leisure Tecumseh Pool coordinate a variety of learn to swim programs, daily public recreational swims, private rentals throughout the summer season, and employs up to 24 students as lifeguards and instructors. Also work directly with event organizers to plan various special events such as the Taste of Tecumseh with the Optimist Club and Hospice Triathlon. Leads a special events resource team, the CERT team, which for anybody who's putting on an event, whether town-wide or community, we oversee that. Directly manage and host community events, including Christmas in Tecumseh, which we just put on, Canada Day celebrations, Earth Day, end of summer celebration, National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. And again, for the full list of the community recreation programs and events, you just were provided with report CRS 2022-15. There's a link here and also in that council report, and it gives the whole list of the programs. Some quick facts. The CRS operational budget in 2022 was 2.8 million. Capital budget was 1.9 million. You see some statistics from some of our programs. We had municipally hosted 22 events and community sponsored 24 events. So that's working with other community groups. The department organizational chart, Christina, if you can please. Okay, it consists of, we have the director, we have 3 managers, we have a supervisor, we have office staff, 1 full-time, 2 part-time, and then we have our full-time employees, which are the rink employees, the parks employees, and then we have seasonal employees in parks. We have part-time rink attendants, and then we have a host of students, interns, and student opportunities for our department throughout the season. Current and future projects. So we're going to expand year-round programming opportunities for residents. We want to continue with that. So the 5-year capital projects highlighted in the recent report, I provided links. Those were the 2022 5-year capital. I can tell you that you will receive at the December 13th council meeting these same reports updated for 2023 capital to 2027. This is not the normal procedure, but under the current circumstances, we felt it important to provide council with those 3 reports, so you're aware of those going in. I can tell you too that those reports do not reflect the operational budget, so the levy. The funding comes from either reserves, the parks reserves, the arena reserves, or the nil. So it doesn't affect the annual levy that you'll be debating later on. We update the town's energy conservation and demand management plan, implement energy efficient projects for conserving energy within town facilities. implement recommendations in the updated Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And there's a recommendation to undertake a new complete Parks and Recreation Master and Trails Master Plan in 2025. With the growth of the community and the future growth of the community, a number of things will change and we'll move forward with that. Key plan study, excuse me, I should go, I had another note that I did want to let council know some of the large major capital projects that we had through the capital program last year that council, just for specifically for the new council members. So Lacoste Ball Diamond upgrades, currently right now that tender is out. It will close before, I think it's December 9th. Hopefully, we're hoping for good pricing. Some side news from that, because of that upgrades and also the success of our Tecumseh Baseball Club, they have been awarded the 2024 Canadian National Championships to be held here in Tecumseh in August. So it was a combination of the renovation work that they saw and plus the success of our program. The artificial turf, soccer and baseball fields at LaSorne McAuliffe, those are slated. They may be divided up between next year and the year after. The Cattle Library renovations, as of tomorrow, or no, excuse me, Thursday, the public consultation closed. We'll look at those along with all the other consultations we've had. I did have the opportunity to meet with both the two new councillors to get some, let them know the process and where they could look at it for any changes. The goal is to have that out for 10 in the first of the new year and project completed next year. The Lakewood Park splash pad, washrooms, and the tender is out for the architect has been selected for the washrooms. We're working on that. That will go out early in the new year. And then the second part of that is a splash pad. That will follow the same procedure as the other two splash pads. We will provide a number to the companies that provide splash pads construction. They will promote and present the town's administration with splash pad layouts and design, and from there it will be selected. Southfield Park splash pad and washrooms, that is a 2024 initiative. And also in 2023 for Southfield, there's a perimeter park that's proposed to go around the entire park, as well as a multi-court surface that will go in the park. So lots of exciting things for Southfield Park. The Lakewood Park Pavilion, picnic shelter was part of the master plan and part of our council priorities. That is slated for 2024 or 2025. The double or triple gymnasium, the sportsplex component, again, for council members, we revamped the overall sportsplex. That is there as a placeholder. We're looking for participation from upper levels of government support. And upon receiving that, we would move forward, hopefully with council's approval. As well with that would be the Hotel Du Grace partnership that they have certainly come forth with and are ready to fund. And so we'll move in that as that comes. And then the Maidstone Recreation Center, exciting news. We're in the final throes of getting the agreement or the sale transfer done, as well as an operational agreement that they will continue to operate some of the programming for a 5-year term. We're just about there with that. So in 2023, we have slated to install outdoor washrooms at the facility in partnership with them. They have applied for a Trillium grant. We're waiting for some confirmation on that, as well as they're making a financial commitment as well as us. In 2024, we're looking to pave the parking lot and also put in possibly a 4-court pickleball complex on that site. And then in 2025, an allotment for some infrastructure work to the existing building. Those are some of the key projects, as well as you will see again very shortly in December 13th, what's proposed for the arena, the pool, and the rest of the parks. Okay, so key plan studies, policies and bylaws. There's a list there again that goes to the list that the clerk's department has compiled. The main ones that we follow are the Parks and Rec Master Plan and the update. And we can go to the next. Again, some more of the key studies and policies, and go to the next one. Professional service providers. We've listed some of our partners. The top two, you'll note, they're very key for us with the energy management. And then the rest of them are ongoing, either legislative or partners that we use to maintain our facilities. And go to the next one. Same thing. Okay, and then the contact information is myself as the Director of the Community and Recreation Services. So with that, I'm open for any questions on our department's presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anthony. Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Councilor Tonio.
Just a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to Paul Anthony, on tennis courts. Are we well equipped with tennis courts? I have some complaints, of the people that don't play pickleball saying that we don't have enough tennis courts. From your opinion, your thoughts, do we have enough tennis courts in town?
Currently, I guess through our consultations to the Parks and Recreation master plans and open houses, and we were never provided with anything. There was a tennis court that sat empty for a number of years, which we turned into the first pickleball home.
Yep.
They get well used. We did redo St. Mary's. It's a single court last year. So we have 3 in Ward 5. Actually, Ward 5 has 5 tennis courts, and then we have the 2 here. So at this point in time, yes, I believe there is. We haven't had that feedback. We haven't had complaints when we sell the keys that people have said that we need more, but obviously with every service that's provided, everybody would like more.
Correct.
And
I would weigh more bases on what you're receiving than what I'm receiving. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Councilor Jobin.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Paul Anthony, and just to add to that, Councillor Tonio, a couple of things that I get with the tennis court concern is that they have to purchase a key. So we keep track of the users, and sometimes they take offense to that, but it's the purpose of protection. They need different care and long-term maintenance. So you don't want people skateboarding and riding bicycles. So if there is an issue, we know who we can go to manage the use of them. And some people kind of get turned off by that. But once that's explained, they actually take an honor to having the key after that. But maybe we could just promote to those people where ours are located in my ward, because sometimes the Maidstone one really is underutilized. It kind of goes in spurts where it's like a hot thing and then kind of not. But maybe we could just point them into the direction of where we do have those in the municipality and they can enjoy other parks in the municipality. Thanks.
And just to add to that, it is important to control with the key. The key is, I think, $27 for the year. So it gives them like 8 months of usage. So if you divide that down by the number of times each individual who purchases a key plays, it's probably like 20 cents, if that, every time they open that door. But Councilor Jobin is correct. If you don't have that control in place, you've got skateboarders, you've got hockey, games going on and everything else. And it is cost. We just upgraded the Weston Park, and I think it was $30,000 to resurface and repaint the line. So it's not an inexpensive proposition.
No, I think it's been well managed, and it's about control and protecting the surface, and I think that's it's a little price to pay to make sure that the courts are used for what they were intended to be. Go ahead.
And in addition to that as well, something that I've brought up a couple times, we have all forms of user fees for all of our sports, our athletics, baseball, our baseball teams throughout the municipality, soccer. And we have this, I've brought it up before, and I still feel like we should review it again. A key to those dog users at our dog parks, again, it's holding them accountable. We often run into problems with, we provide them with water, we don't provide them with water. We provide them with water, they have an infection. We provide them with waste bags, they don't use the waste bags. So maybe if we hold them accountable with the key, they would have an honor as well when they're utilizing the park. But I feel like that's maybe a bit of a bigger scope to manage with fencing, and I don't know, just a thought to consider. Again.
And thank you, Councillor Jobin, through the mayor, that you're correct. It is a very difficult the issue with tennis and such, you're usually only having so many users at a time show up. With the dog park, they all meet at the same time. So one key gives 30 people access, and that's the problem. We don't have the staff to be able to oversee it. And that usually they're large numbers at once. The fences aren't as tall, so they can reach over with a lot of them. But certainly there's something that can be looked at in the future. Obviously, it's just a little bit tougher to control because of the large numbers that come at the same time. And they're one buys the key and they're the gate point.
Nothing further, then thank you very much, Mr. Anthony. And so we'll get into development services, Mr. Hillman.
Okay, good afternoon to everybody. So development services, we're broken into 4 divisions. We have planning services, building services, which we've been speaking about recently with council, transit, and local economic development services. So, one of our core functions is really planning services. That's really providing council, committees, the public, various stakeholders. It could be the developers we're working with, property owners with professional land use planning advice. Really, we're putting that out to council and to the public through a number of very critical documents. And our recommendations that come to council and to the public flow through various policies and regulations and approvals. And I would remind council that a lot of what's built in a community is really built by private individuals, whether it be we as property owners, developers, and so on. Yes, the town does considerable effort in building its community through its own municipal infrastructure, but a lot of new development really is happening by individuals and private investments. So decisions around those applications and those developments are guided by a number of documents. So we have some listed here that are critical to oversight, and that's an official plan. Secondary plans, which we'll talk about briefly. Community improvement plans, the town has 2 for the community, our Main Street area, and for our industrial community improvement plan, which was just adopted by council a few months ago. A zoning bylaw is a very strong regulatory document that details and implements the official plan and determines a specific land use and regulations. And we are responsible for development charges bylaw, and we work, as Tom had mentioned, with other departments in the development of that document. We also are very much involved with the coordination of decision-making before things make their way to council. So any applications that come into the municipality of a planning nature, which flow through the Planning Act, are going to touch our department, and we have oversight to ensure that the proper agencies are consulted with, and that departments in the organization are consulted with, whether it be public works, parks, fire service, to ensure that all matters are adequately addressed. And you can see the types of applications that we're dealing with are amendments to the official plan, zoning, subdivision and site plan control, severance, minor variance, and CIP grants. Site plan control was recently delegated to a staff. That was a responsibility that was still vested with council up until the province made a significant change just halfway through this past year, which was to establish that councils will no longer be responsible for site plan approvals. That has been delegated to myself, and I have a delegate through Chad, and ultimately agreements are executed by the CAO and the clerk. We follow a very refined process in terms of approving site plan applications, and site plan control is a tool that we use primarily for medium high density residential uses, commercial, institutional, industrial uses, and it's regulating very fine details on site, including servicing, amenities, landscaping, parking, and so on. We also are responsible for providing professional planning opinions at the Ontario Land Tribunal. Many of you will recall that as the OMB, the Ontario Municipal Board previously. We would defend decisions of council where it followed our recommendations, or non-decisions of council. We would give planning opinion as well. And we oversee the Committee of Adjustment. So in our area, the Committee of Adjustment is a body that deals with severances and minor variances to the zoning bylaw. It's under the Planning Act. The Planning Act allows council to delegate that responsibility down to the Committee of Adjustment. Most municipalities in our region have done that. We have a committee of laypersons, and the committee is run very much like council. And the clerk's position is held by the Secretary Treasurer of the committee, which is a position that sits in our area as well. And it's really processing applications and following all the requirements of the act and seeing that the applications are fulfilled and all conditions are met in accordance with the decisions of the committee. We have representation on a number of committees, some of which are internal and some of which are external. So the County-wide Active Transportation Study, CWATS as the acronym goes. We've been involved with the implementation committee since the very beginning of that study. In fact, Tecumseh was very instrumental in getting that program off the ground. IRCA Transition, that's a committee that is intended over the past year and going into the next couple of years. It's looking at what are the mandatory and non-mandatory programs that the town is going to be involved with IRCA. It's been slightly delayed, especially through this Bill 23 period. But we do anticipate having that committee continue to move forward and building relationships with the municipalities. Regional Planners Committee, it's a committee that flows from the county OP and the city OP, where there's a coordination level that's attempted amongst all of our neighboring municipalities to discuss areas of common interest, looking for consistency of policy application and coordination. County OP is under review, and so we sit on that committee on a technical planning advisory level to see that the plan has proper regard to Tecumseh's interests and the regional interests. And as well, we have representation on the county and the town energy committee, which for the town is led by Paul's division, but Chad Jeffrey sits on that committee as well. We also provide support on bylaw enforcement. That area had been with the Development Services Department for a number of years, and through the org review that was just implemented, it moved over to community safety. And we still provide support on zoning interpretations and so on. Zoning is a very unique area, and we bring some expertise to it, so we provide support on interpretations. Building services. So that is something that will be familiar with everyone here, having gone through the operational review just the other night. So council is required to designate a chief building official under the Ontario Building Code. Very important position, as can be appreciated. And that person is responsible to oversee the issuing of building permits and demolition permits, plans review, inspections, and the issuance of orders. There's also responsibility for reporting to Stats Canada and MPAC Ontario on warranty program, very much guided by the Act, the Ontario Building Code Act, and has regard to something called, pardon me, applicable law, which are certain pieces of legislation that the CBO has to have regard to, and it might be things like site plan control under the Planning Act, or requirements of the MTO and so on. So it's quite a breadth of responsibility. Next slide. We also have responsibilities that are outside of the Ontario Building Code, and that are things such as swimming pools, signs and fences, property grading. These are municipal bylaws that are passed under other pieces of legislation, such as the Municipal Act. And again, we assist with bylaw enforcement and provincial licensing. So on property standards and land maintenance, where the bylaw enforcement division gets into a situation where it might involve a building which is in a poor condition, the chief building official or an inspector can assist in determining, next steps for or issuing orders in relation to buildings. Again, zoning interpretations, liquor license, the building division reviews for occupancy numbers, proper bathroom sizes, and so on. Transit. So this is a division that we've been involved with for about 13 years since the inception of transit here at the town. And the org review is proposing that service area shift over to Public Works and Engineering Services next year. But in the meantime, we continue to have oversight. We monitor the system. We recommend revisions. We track ridership. We prepare all the necessary documents and brochures that go with it, and we have reporting responsibilities to CUDA, Canada Urban Transit Authority. You can see the map there just shows our fixed route when it was operating on a fixed route, and it actually ends over to the west off to the left side at Tecumseh Mall, which is one of the major transit hubs in the city of Windsor. We use First Student Canada. We've gone through a number of RFPs for service providers over the years and have landed on First Student Canada, I believe 3 times when we've gone through an RFP process. They're still our provider, and they maintain our fleet as well, which comprises 2 buses at this time. There's always 1 bus on. We're just completing our on-demand transit pilot project, and we'll have a report on for the December 13th council meeting to provide an update to council on that program and some recommendations on where to go in the next year in 2023. Local Economic Development Services, that is an area that is also new to the Development Services Division. And that came out of the org review that has been spoken to a number of times already. And the real impetus to this is to provide a high level of relationship building with our regional economic development agency in West Windsor, Essex, also with the Tecumseh BIA. We're involved with implementing the Tecumseh Lakeshore Shared Economic Development Strategy, which Mr. Jeffrey reported on just last Tuesday. And very much engaged around the idea of implementing the 5-year capital works plan that is intended to advance development opportunities in the town that was dealt with by council in May of this year. One of the major drivers that this area will oversee is also the implementation of the Industrial Community Improvement Plan that was just adopted by council earlier this year. I think it was September. And that is a major document which incentivizes a large-scale industrial development in the town, is very progressive, and we'll take the lead on implementing that. Some quick facts. You can see our operating budget net expense with all those divisions included. Number of applications that we typically process over a year, and just would remind council that all of those applications, particularly the planning ones under the first 2 bullets, are very much driven by not only times within which we are expected to have council make decisions under the Planning Act, but also how we give notification, who has rights to notification, what neighbors are supposed to be given notifications, and what agencies are to be given notifications on different decisions that are going to be addressed by council. Most matters require some level of public engagement. And so you'll see reports coming forward recommending public meetings. We'll hold public meetings, and then we'll report on the outcomes. Decisions of council have to have regard to public input. We have to report on what the nature of the input was and how we feel it's been addressed. And ultimately, council will make decisions based on their own feelings on matters, our recommendations. And you'll see we have on average 7 CIP grants. Those are grant applications that are only available in areas where you have an approved community improvement plans. There's a concept in Ontario where bonusing is not allowed. The only time the municipality is able to grant back funds to a development of some sort is through a community improvement plan. Our 2 plans have been developed through the Planning Act, which goes through a rigorous public process, has clear identified expectations, and our Main Street CIP has been quite successful. Building services, very quickly, we've seen some of these stats already in terms of as of last Tuesday. So activity rates we see increasing quite significantly, and are forecast to continue to do so. Next slide. Transit, we cover really the northern portion of the town, primarily north of County Road 22. There's a catchment area we use of about a 400 meter to 500 meter threshold that people are willing to walk. So we cover about 90% of the residents north of County Road 22 in terms of access to our transit system. It's an hour headway. We've had over almost 300,000 riders in its 12 years. We're in our 13th year right now. Pre-COVID, we were getting close to 30,000 riders a year. COVID was, as with all transit system, quite harsh on the system. And our numbers went down to just under 14,000. And the 22 on-demand pilot project was hit with COVID, but also the on-demand project had some challenges with it that we'll report on the 13th. So the organizational chart, you'll see the positions. We're showing that there's 7 staff. We have 6.7 full-time equivalents. So Wade had mentioned our planning clerical secretary treasurer committee of adjustment, 0.3 of her time actually is in the community services division. Do I have that right? Community service, community safety. I'm still not planted with this whole org review. We have HR too. So 0.3 of one of the staff is actually reports to Wade's team, provides support on bylaw enforcement. But you can see there we have a manager of planning and economic development, a manager over the building area, building inspector, and then 2 clerks and a planner. And then of course, myself as the director. Current projects. So we have some very exciting things going on right now. Tecumseh Hamlet Secondary Plan is a document that is attempting to coordinate the development of lands along the Banwell corridor as we see it, which is between County Road 22 and 42. These are lands that are identified for urban development, and the secondary plan, the purpose of it is to establish preferred land uses, identify road patterns, placement of parks, active transportation facilities, timing and phasing of infrastructure, and a high level of coordination on lands that are suitable for development, but because of their juxtaposition require some level of policy direction to help them develop. That area of the town, we think will accommodate approximately 4,000 households. Sorry, 3,000 households. And we anticipate the plan being completed April of 2023. It will be going through a public process. I believe we have an open house scheduled for December 7th, which you should have received notice of, for some public information sessions. This project actually began a number of years ago and was delayed because of a number of other studies that feed into it. So we're just trying to close it up and get the lands ready for development. And it's part of our work that came out of the May direction of council to get development moving. New comprehensive zoning bylaw. There's currently 3 zoning bylaws that affect and are in place in the town of Tecumseh, and they align with the former 3 municipalities. We've retained a consultant to work on that, WSP. They have a very diverse history in preparing zoning bylaws. The project commenced midway through this year and is anticipated to be completed at the end of next year. We have an open house scheduled on that for December 14th, and a report will be coming to council early in the new year regarding that program and what its intended outcomes are and some of the major issues that we see. And that's a major tool to implement the new official plan that was just adopted in 2021. And of course, on December 13th, we'll be evaluating our on-demand transit service and looking to have a transition year next year and determining longer term what our plans are for transit. Future projects. Old Castle Future Development Lands Special Study. We have lands that are in the Old Castle area that are inside the hamlet area. So they're lands that are identified for development, but their long-term use has not yet been determined. There's about 200 to 250 acres of land that were identified a number of years ago for future urban development. This study is intended to determine the preferred nature of those lands, whether they be residential, commercial, industrial, and we are just finalizing an RFP to go out for the retaining of a consultant to assist with that. This will be slightly different than a secondary plan. The lands are generally disjointed, not connected to one another. And really it's a study just trying to determine how these lands should best be used. Anticipated completion will be the end of next year. Tom mentioned development charge background report in DC. Ours is up as of August 30th, 2024. So we'll begin that project late next year. It's a very comprehensive undertaking to determine our growth needs, forecasting out 20 years. CWAT's master plan is currently being updated by the county. We have a very strong vested interest in that document and have representation on that project. The County of Essex Transportation Master Plan is currently under review, which we have a high interest in, which leads to the County Essex Road Rationalization Study, which has been going on for a number of years and became slightly derailed and is thought to be moving forward once the master plan process is undertaken. Key plans and studies that we rely on are there. You'll see we have 3 zoning bylaws: Tecumseh, St. Clair Beach, Sandwich South, to be replaced. Tecumseh OP, very important document. If I had to place emphasis on a document, very important for the municipality to have this official plan in place. It guides all decisions of council. And it really sets the framework for making decisions around not only our growth, but our resource management, our natural heritage features, linking planning with transportation decisions, and so on. Tecumseh Road Main Street Community Improvement Plan, CIP, has been a very fundamental document to the redevelopment of our main core and continues to be implemented through grant programs and has some oversight in relationship to an ongoing urban design and detailed design exercise for that municipal portion of that road that Phil will probably speak to. And our industrial community improvement plan has just come out and we look forward to implementing that. Development charges again is under review. These are major studies that are available and accessible in the list. And I would just point out the last 2 at the end: County of Essex OP and the provincial policy statement. The Planning Act establishes basically that council shall make decisions that are in conformity with the County of Essex official plan and are consistent with the provincial policy statement. That's, you'll see in a lot of our planning reports, a reference to those documents. You know, sometimes the reports become a little bit repetitive. All of our decisions are appealable to a tribunal, and we have to make it clear that we're putting information in front of council that you're making full and complete decisions. So that's why you'll see a lot of reference to policy out of those 2 documents. These are some of the service providers we use. Dialogue on our Tecumseh Hamlet, Watson, you'll see in a lot of studies here around financial assistance, and on our DCs, he works with us, and the other 2 I've mentioned. Blaze Transit's our on-demand transit app, and we had a call-in service that was assisting with on-demand as well. And that's who I am and where I am. So happy to take any questions.
Just one, Brian, on the Old Castle, the Habib lands that, have gone through all the processes and so forth, would they be subject under the new 23?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, which
The
lands?
Habib lands, the North Talbot and 8th concession?
Oh, sorry, yes. The Old Castle Heights, no, that's fully in place and they will be proceeding with development. In fact, they're starting development. They have a little tiny glitch with a matter, but from the municipality's perspective, they are ready to go and they've had a pre-construction meeting.
So they won't be under the old guidelines. Okay. Some good news. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just on the tail of that, and I know I had asked a question regarding the upcoming development that is coming on Tecumseh Road. But just a generalized question, when an application comes forward, is it the day that the application is approved, or is it the day that the application is accepted that it's the rules that it goes under? If I could just ask.
Anything beyond the royal assent of Bill 23, which was Monday, anything that comes in after that, I would surmise that it falls under the guidelines, doesn't it? No?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'd have to actually check. It's very complex in terms of the transition wording, and I didn't see the final version of the act when it came in. I know there were amendments. There are critical dates, though, that will affect how we can apply development charges and some affordability questions. Some of them relate to the date that the application is deemed complete. And the time, there's a whole bunch of timelines that have been introduced pre-23 and with 23. So in terms of our current applications, we'll be looking at those to see who is affected. But the transition wording, I would want to check before giving a specific.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. Just to add on to that, typically legislation can receive royal assent, but not yet be promulgated because there is no regulations to go with it. And so the proof is in that level of detail. So for example, the Community Safety and Policing Act received royal assent in 2019, and we're still waiting for it to come into full force and effect. I suspect that they will hurry this along a lot faster than the Community Safety and Policing Act. But we do have a webinar being put on by Weird Folds on December 15th. So we'll get a sense of what the final Bill 23 looks like, and then potentially the timelines associated with the regulatory framework that goes with it.
So I guess the word out there is get your applications in quickly.
Well, not necessarily. Yeah.
Enough for them, the developers and us. Yeah. Oh, no, for us. Yes. Yeah.
This may be too long of a question for right now, which is fine. Community improvement plans, we have two. What is the kind of process for evaluating when a CIP is necessary or advantageous for us to take on as a town or us to look at? You mentioned that there was a quite a lengthy process for coming up with the parameters around those. So I'm just wondering if you can, very Cole's notes. It doesn't have to be a lot right now. I'm just wondering kind of what the sort of parameters where we look at CIPs for.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Good question. So community improvement plans have really evolved over time. And the genesis was really back in the 70s and 80s, where the provincial government set in place a policy framework where it said, if you have certain areas of the municipality that are generally tired, your infrastructure is worn down, and you want to offer incentives, you could identify those neighborhoods as areas warranting some level of critical review and put in place programs that would identify public investments and grants that would be available to property owners to get some benefit back from the municipality, whether it be through facade treatments or improvements to buildings and so on. That really changed a lot over through the 80s and 90s, where there was an economic development and a component provided to the CIPs, where it allowed for a broader spectrum of incentivization to take place. And that's where we see a lot of these, like our industrial CIP, which is trying to incentivize investment through targeted types of industry. How does one determine what would constitute a CIP? The policies in the official plan do break out. You'll see a section on community improvements, and it sets out what are the types of criteria that are required in terms of promoting a community improvement area. It generally is trying to look in an area, and the classic example for us, the industrial one's a little different. The classic example for the town is the Main Street CIP, an area that had largely depopulated, underinvested over a number of years, large tracts of land that are underdeveloped, odd ownership configuration, and a desire by the municipality for it to become something greater than it had been evolving into. And the Planning Act basically sets out a framework for you to look at that type of area, which has a very unique issue to be addressed, and how a community improvement plan can create focus around objectives, policy objectives, both within the public realm, so the streets that we own, the properties that we own, and a vision for private property and how it could develop and intensify. So that means it usually has a high degree of public involvement in the development of the plan. And it goes through a process of being very transparent, ultimately through public meetings, and is adopted by council. And it has to set out very clear expectations as to what is being, what's the outcome that you're seeking. You will see that there are some municipalities that have a CIP for the entire, Windsor has a CIP for the entire city, which is very much an economic development tool. We have one for industrial uses that is very focused on industrial. But generally, historically, they've been around the concept of our downtown, or it would be a neighborhood that maybe has a very unique condition that you're trying to address, or a range of conditions that you're trying to address. And you can use a CIP, a community improvement plan, as a tool to try and facilitate change. So a bit of a convoluted answer, but yes, and the OP gives the guidelines around it. Yeah. And you have to have the OP is important, because for a lot of things that council does, a lot of bylaws that you pass, a lot of tools that we use, you have to have OP policy, and the Planning Act sets that up, that in order to do certain things, you have to have policies in your OP. So when you look through the official plan, which hopefully, you'll do sometime, do so with a mind of asking any questions, but there are a lot of policies there that are intended to provide us with the full breadth of tools available to implement all kinds of alternative solutions. And CIP is one of them. You'll see a whole section on that.
Next, Public Works and Engineering Services, Mr. Bartnick.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good afternoon, Council, members of Council. So Public Works and Engineering Services. So the department overview. So we do have three very distinct divisions: the Public Works and Transportation Services, Water Services, and Engineering Services. So PWES, for short, we're responsible to operate and maintain existing municipal infrastructure and plan for new infrastructure. This includes roads, bridges, culverts, sidewalks, pathways, storm and sanitary sewers, water mains, traffic signals, streetlights, fleet, garbage and yard waste, municipal drains, and winter control. We are also responsible to manage capital works plans, new capital projects, review and approve servicing drawings for site plan and development submissions, undertake master plans, municipal class EAs, as well as special studies. So some quick facts on the department. So the capital program for this given year in 2022 is approximately 10 million. The previous 10-year average was about 9.67 million. And we have kind of drafted our 5-year capital plan moving forward from 2023 to 27. We have a projected 5-year average of 24 million of infrastructure. The 2022 budget, so we did have a general operating budget, 4.6 million for operating expenditures. The rate supported, which is water and wastewater. We did have 10.7 million for total revenues from the rates. 4.5 million was transferred to reserve funds for capital projects, with the remainder 6.2 million going to operating expenditures. So these next couple of slides, they do give kind of some insight on the current condition assessments of the town infrastructure. So I won't go through them entirely, but the information is there for council. So we do have condition assessments on roads, bridges and culverts, storm sewers and storm pumping stations, as well as water mains, sanitary sewers, and sanitary pump stations. Now, oh, sorry, Jen, just back one. I do want to add that I believe after the condition assessments on the sanitary sewers, the town was very aggressive in our I&I program on the sanitary system. And where about 3.5 million was spent over about 1.5 years or 2 years of cleaning, doing video inspection, and repairing the sanitary system where required. The next number of slides are summaries of the town's infrastructure and the infrastructure that PWS is responsible for operating and maintaining. So I do want to highlight a few bullets on some of these slides. So under the road network, we do have 16 bridges that are greater than 3-meter span. We are legislated to have an engineer inspect these every other year. We do have 2 pedestrian crossovers. Council may have seen those go in just recently on the Manning Road Phase 2 project over at St. Thomas, as well as Little River Boulevard as well. We do have 2 public works yards, one with the water building and public works building over at Lacoste and Tecumseh, with the other one being in the south on McCord Lane, just behind the fire hall or fire station number 2. Now, I think we've all seen some of the town's red trucks driving around and a number of the lawnmowers in the parks, but this definitely gives you some insight as to the fleet inventory that we have to maintain and operate. So everything from pickup trucks to Zambonis to dump trucks and then to lawnmowers as well. On the for the water infrastructure, I definitely wanted to highlight. So we do have 11 boundary meters with the city of Windsor, and we do have an agreement with the city where we purchase water from WUC and from the city of Windsor, and WUC being the Windsor Utilities Commission. We also have 4 boundary meters with Lakeshore, where we provide a very small service area with water every year. We also have a large water tower in the north end, and we have 2 water oasis depots, one at our public works yard over on Lacoste in the north end, and the second one being at Fire Hall number 2 out in Old Castle Hamlet. So for storm infrastructure, we do have 8 storm pumping stations, 7 of those being along the Lake St. Clair shoreline, the other one being on Brighton Road and Tecumseh Road, outletting into Pike Creek. And we do have approximately 124 municipal drains with a length of 200 kilometers that we do manage those through the Drainage Act. So the department's organization. So we do have 29 FTEs with 6 students, and that gives us the equivalent of 30.86 FTE. So like I mentioned before, there are three distinct divisions. The Public Works and Transportation Services Division, they do have 10 FTEs with 4 students, ranging from the manager to Public Works leader to Public Works laborers. The Water Services Division, that division has 10 FTEs with 2 students, and that ranges from a manager, a water leader, a water quality compliance officer, water employees, and 2 students. And sorry, Jim, just back one. And then the Engineering Services Division, we do have 6 full-time employees. We have the manager of engineering, a couple of new positions that have come on board over the last number of years, being the engineering project manager, as well as the development engineer to help with the capacity, as well as focus on those projects to help facilitate development. So for current projects, we do have a number of studies that are ongoing. The 2022 Bridge Needs Study, we are finalizing that now and plan to bring that forward to council early in 2023. The Shoreline Management Plan has been ongoing for about 1.5 years now, and we are also finalizing our report to council and plan to bring that forward in February. The Asset Management Plan was recently brought forward to council, and earlier this year it has been completed, similarly with the Oldcastle Stormwater Master Plan. The Upper Little River Watershed Drainage Master Plan was just recently brought to council and will be placed on the 30-day review period. And the Turkey Creek Watershed Assessment, that's a joint venture with the City of Windsor, Town of LaSalle, and IRCA. And that's in the later stages of being finalized as well. So continuing on with studies for this year, we are undertaking a water model update on the north and south distribution systems. And that's being undertaken with WUC, the Windsor Utilities Commission, as well as the Town of LaSalle. We hope to have those finalized here early in 2023. The Tecumseh Hamlet Secondary Plan, the Municipal Class EA, and Functional Servicing Report. We're working hand in hand with Development Services on that right now. Manning Road Secondary Plan Area, the Functional Servicing Report should be finalized within the next month or so. And then there's a number of cost recovery bylaws, which we reference kind of Part 12 bylaws under the Municipal Act for the 8th concession sanitary outlet, as well as the Sylvester Drive sanitary outlet. We haven't lost sight of the traffic calming or the speed mitigation policy that we hope to bring forward early in 2023. And our department, along with finance, has also been working on the stormwater rate study. Current projects that are in detailed design. So the DMAF projects, as we call, we have broken them up into 2 different phases. The first phase being Scully St. Mark's storm pumping station. So the construction for that project will be tendered out hopefully in January of next year. Working together with our county partners on the County Road 42 and 43 improvement phase. So there's detailed design for phase 2 that is currently underway. We have a number of sanitary extension or sanitary sewer extension projects in Oldcastle, one being on County Road 46 in Webster, the other on Del Duca Drive. So we're finalizing those designs. Snake Lane culvert replacements. We hope to have that project tendered out hopefully in February of next year. And then some water main projects that are currently under design on the 12th concession, Centennial and Woodridge. And the Les Bronx Road Via Rail improvements, the tender just closed for that project. We hope to bring a report forward on December 13th for your consideration. With respect to construction this year, it was definitely a challenging year with the market and prices and availability of contractors. We were able to finalize the annual asphalt program. the Tecumseh Road Storm and Road Improvement Project, which was just completed a few weeks ago, and the road is back open to traffic. And construction currently ongoing on the Riverside Drive multi-use trail. And the county did commence construction on the 42 and 43 improvements. However, that even though construction has started, I believe in October of this year, it's not slated to be completed until end of 2023. And there was a few minor sanitary pump station improvements that were also completed this year. So future projects to look forward to, regional food and organics and biosolids waste management. So this study is being, I guess, undertaken by the Essex Windsor Solid Waste Authority in consultation with the county and the city of Windsor, but we are definitely partners as well. And there is this requirement for having the food and organics out of the regional landfills by 2025. The MACP consolidated linear infrastructure ECAs. So we've been working with the province on this over the last year. Essentially, they're looking to download the review and approval process. So we're still working through some of the particulars on that. We hope to have a report to council on how that might impact some of our service levels. Council may recall earlier this year, we did bring a report forward on the Union Water and Windsor Utilities Commission Water Redundancy Study. So they're the two larger water providers in Essex County, and they undertook a study to interconnect their system and how that might be implemented and how they would be able to service the region under certain emergency events. So I believe their recommended solution was about $120 million of infrastructure to be constructed by 2026. I believe Brian spoke to the County of Essex Transportation Master Plan, which I believe is going to be commenced in 2023. And then we also have ongoing DMAF projects, phase 1 and phase 2 for those storm pumping stations. And just for council awareness, those projects do come with a March 2028 deadline. So additional future projects, Tecumseh Hamlet Northwest Infrastructure, Water and Wastewater. We're looking at getting an RFP out and a consultant on board very shortly. The Manning Road Secondary Plan Area, or MRSPA, the swim facility and other infrastructure. So we're looking at finalizing the FSR and excuse me, implementing a Part 12 cost recovery bylaw. The Centennial and Woodridge water main replacement. So we were fortunate earlier this year to get word that I believe we got about 2.7 million through the ISIP Green Stream Fund. So detailed design will commence early in 23 with construction following a few years later. And then some of the coordination with the County of Essex projects, right? So 42, 43 improvements, phase 2, County Road 19 improvements, which will take place between County Road 22 and Jamsel Drive. And then County Road 46, the county is looking at implementing a municipal class EA for that corridor between the city of Windsor and the town of Lakeshore. So it would be from the city limits down to County Road 19. So the next number of slides, so key plans and studies. So these can be found on the shared folder that I believe Jen has set up and forwarded to council. So we have mentioned a number of these. I have mentioned a number of these over the last number of slides, so I won't go through them in great detail. I will remind council that, we did bring forward the asset management plan in late October. And there's also a number of master plans that we rely on and utilize, those being, whether they're water, wastewater, transportation, or stormwater related. So other key plans and studies, we do have a number of environmental assessments that are either current or just recently completed. We've also done a number of condition assessments over the last number of years or need studies when it comes to roads, bridges, and culverts. Just some additional plans and studies. You can go to the next slide, please. In this slide, we definitely wanted to identify, so these municipal Class CAs or master plans were completed by other entities, whether it was the City of Windsor, the County of Essex, or the Ministry of Transportation of Ontario, but definitely have an impact on the town of Tecumseh and our residents, right? So those being County Road 19 and 22 EA, the Lozon Parkway improvements, which also encompasses County Road 42 throughout the city, and then all the way into Lakeshore to Puce. The Manuel Road Municipal Class EA, so that was for the City of Windsor, from Tecumseh Road down to CP Rail, and then County Road 43 Municipal Class EA undertaken by the County of Essex, from CP Rail to just south of County Road 42. So the next number of slides just kind of highlight the professional service providers. The list is quite significant, so I won't go into great detail with them, but they are there if you wanted to review them or had any questions. So I think skipping through those, that's the end of my presentation. Be happy to answer any questions for you.
Thank you. Just on when you made reference to County Road 42 and 43 Class CA and that, are you looking at amendments to what's already been done? Because obviously the whole issue of the realignments and so forth have already been established, right? So
it was to you, Mr. Mayor.
I mean,
it was
our responsibility on our side.
Yeah, I think it was more so we wanted to have regard to these other studies that have been undertaken by other entities and make sure that they're being followed through on, and that they're being designed in accordance with what the EA says, because we definitely have an interest as they're running through our municipality or adjacent to our municipality.
Yeah, we don't want to lose another 20 years.
No.
Okay, nothing further. Thank you very much. Last but not least. Oh, that's right. Sorry.
First is not last.
No,
Hey,
I didn't see the people in culture.
Personality
I saw
out there.
Administrative officer, so I thought it was closing remarks. Sorry about that, Michelle.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good afternoon, members of council. So Department of Technology and Client Services, 5 main areas that we focus on now post org review from 2021. The first being the original IT department, or the core IT component of the department. So that covers things computing and telecommunications, network security. We talked about last week on prevention and education and awareness. Capacity planning, security and AV systems, performance monitoring, data management, asset coordination, some assistance with the digital radios, GPS and AVL systems. And we've heard this afternoon about SCADA systems, bulk water systems and fuel systems. All those have IT components with them that we assist with the deployment and maintenance of. The second area is business solutions. So this is something that our group assists the various departments with deploying, procuring, setting up, training, management, and ongoing maintenance of various components that they require to do within their respective departments. The next one is our GIS, 23 years in the making. We started from ground zero back after amalgamation and built quite a system now that some of you have been exposed to, many layers that we'll talk about here in a second. But really something that's used by every department, consultants, and the public on a day-to-day basis. And The second that system is down, we know it right away based on input from our users. And so something that we're quite proud of. And GIS, International GIS Day there last week as we sent around the communication about the launching finally of an open data portal for the town for access to various layers in addition to our existing maps.tecumseh.ca. The next area is under customer service. So this is something new that came out of the org review in 21 under technology and client services. So our clients that we focused on originally were our internal clients, but now we've expanded that to customer service as a whole. And the focus or the goal here is to provide consistent customer service across the organization to our clients abroad. So that includes issue tracking and reporting, which we'll be coming back to council with, issue resolution management, the consistent approach to that, and then reporting regularly about results and metrics and KPIs and trends on all issues related to customer service. And last but not least, having a formal entity within the organization with respect to communications. That was usually in the past, over the past 10 years, been done by committee or been done with a subgroup or off to the side of somebody's desk, but to have somebody in-house full-time dedicated to communications, both internal and external. We've seen great things just since May, since Mackenzie's come on board. So that's public engagement, town event coordination, media releases, news conferences, our website, our social media channels, and like I said, our internal and external communications. So those are the 5 key areas under the department. Some quick facts. So there's some budget numbers from this year as we roll out the recommendations in the IT service review, which was developed parallel to the organizational review. So there'll be some more staffing complement to round out those recommendations in addition to our capital. That was for last year. Our capital mostly is software and hardware in the organization. So there's a list there of what the capital makes up, and that'll be coming back to council for the life cycle expenditures for 2023. We'll be coming back to you in the meeting in January. So if you add up everything that this department oversees capital wise, it's approaching $1.5 million. It's IT is everywhere. In more places than we'd like it in some instances, but it is something that's very important to the organization and all the departments in addition to council. We also oversee some connectivity amongst all our vehicles, not only laptops in the vehicles, but we'll talk about the GPS and AVL, which is important in our winter control operations and that type of thing. Yeah, years ago, council made a commitment to where we can and we're economically viable to roll out some public Wi-Fi. So originally it was town hall and the arena, and as you can see, the list is growing over the years. So where it makes sense and where we can do it and where people gather, we try and offer that service to our residents and visitors. In addition to just the networking in general, I won't get into the details of how everything's connected, but we have up to 15 municipal sites, over 20 SCADA nodes. Our cellular devices, we're over 100 cellular devices in the organization, and wireless networks. And I've already spoke about the digital radios that we're looking at with fire and public works in the new year. Communication. So again, all the things we've already mentioned. Something that's come to light that would be beneficial is not everybody knows everything, but the more they know, the better. So developing a knowledge base of common issues or programs or events that should be known by our CSRs, our customer service reps, developing that knowledge base for the go-to for that information. We also oversee the implementation and usage of our corporate branding. So we have our official mark at the bottom of the slide. We also have our wordmark logo, which appears on a lot of our clothing or the water tower. Or so those are 2 things that we oversee how it's being used, make sure it's being used properly under license if necessary, and provide that information to the various departments for the use of that. And then our citizen satisfaction survey. So that's something that council felt important to be one of the pillars of our strategic plan years ago. So I think we've had 4 iterations of a customer satisfaction survey over the years, beginning in 2014. The RFP went out actually today for the next version of this. We waited for the new council to come on board after the election. So we'll get the consultant on board early in the new year, go out with the calls in February and come back to council with the findings, which are usually fairly optimistic and fairly good, our report card, but if we feel it's good to reach out to our residents early in the term of council, just to check in to see how we're doing and come back to council with any tweaks of things we have to focus on, in addition to any top of mind issues or questions we need to add to the survey. And again, that's done biennially, so we'll come back again in 2 years midterm and do a check-in with our residents again. So that's something council's committed to in the past, and it was opted for again in the 2022 budget. Yeah, one other thing on here I didn't have the last one was customer service week is something that's come into this department as well, and we had our first kick at that last month, and it went very well. Just some numbers here on some of the things we maintain. One thing that came out of the ITSR, the IT service review in 2021, was the lack or we were missing a help desk. So similar to other departments that use CityWorks to enter their issues, we didn't have that for IT. So to be able to report back to council and to the senior management team about where the focus is on help desk tickets, we weren't tracking any of that, and now that is being tracked, and we've had that up and running for just over a year now. With that number might be a little off, it might be about 2,500 tickets now in a year. So keeps us busy, and now we have some reporting on where we can focus on some help is required internally. Similarly, on the GIS side, they have their own help desk with many tickets that come in. The SCADA node, so supervisory control and data acquisition is what SCADA stands for. So as our director of Public Works and Engineering Services had alluded to, we have many SCADA nodes, and most of those are boundary meters with the city of Windsor. So whether it's water or wastewater, in addition to our stormwater pumps, et cetera. So all those are connected in the field, and they require updates and software that runs and reporting that runs on those call out systems if there's any issues with any of those nodes. So we have a role to play in that system. We've talked about the hotspots and the boardrooms. Video surveillance is something that comes up from time to time before council, and problem sites, and we might have had another candidate site here tonight with the dog park, but we'll see. But most of our facilities have those in place, but any problem spots, we do install cameras, and we have had some successes in court over the years with bringing those that violate or graffiti in any of our facilities, theft. We have had some successes in court and bringing those folks to justice. Again, the GIS layers, we've grown from just a property layer to 120 layers now, 153,000 plus data points that are maintained by our GIS techs. The data collection project, so not only going around with our own surveying equipment, we have had recently this year the tree inventory for the town. So hiring a consultant to go around, identifying all town-owned trees up and down the right-of-ways and in our parks, having that come into the GIS layer with condition assessments and doing reporting and back to the department on the findings of those projects. 20 years of aerial photography. I remember back in 1999, we had our first stab at this. Was a kind of a grainy black and white image, and now it's something that the county was doing every 2 years, and now every year we tap into that aerial photography. You can really see over the years how the town has changed and grown. We've talked about CityWorks and the great progress we've made there. Ontario One Call is something that came in back in 2012 where the government through an act mandated the importance of underground infrastructure and the importance of locating it. So that keeps not only our Public Works and water staff busy, also documenting all those locates on a daily basis back in our GIS. And the next time the locators go out, they have that information at their fingertips. Tecumsehalert.ca is our public notification system that we've invoked a number of times, but that's something that's updated not only by members of the public logging into Tecumsehalert.ca, but also in-house staff maintaining those data points and those phone numbers, email addresses, text numbers, et cetera, for reaching our residents and businesses in the event of an incident or an emergency in the municipality. On the communication side, there's just some numbers for the last year and where we're at with Facebook posts, tweets, et cetera. PlaySpeak, as Director of Community Recreation Services, said our library topic closes this week. So we've had a number of topics there, media releases and Council Connect. The other one worthy to note, and I brought this before Council in September when we were talking about our customer service strategy, and we're still on target to have almost 40,000, just over 40,000 phone calls that are coming to the organization on an annual basis. So we're looking at better ways to handle that traffic that people still find it convenient to communicate with us, obviously with picking up the phone and getting them their answers as quickly as we can. So we're still working on that. Department org chart. So again, myself, two managers that we hope to be in place by the end of this year and or early in 2023. We're going through the interview process now. The comms officers on board, our systems analysts, and the two GIS techs have been in place for a while. Our help desk, something new that we've been having co-op students occupy that position for the last year. But as the IT service review and the org review identified the need to have that become a full-time position. So that'll be something coming back later in 2023 to council. In addition to, I think the business analyst is the only one that's not listed there, and rounding it out with our CSR complement. So all of those positions perform the functions on the left there that I've talked about already. Current projects. So out of the IT service review and our digital strategy that was presented to council in February, there's a number of projects or initiatives that were recommendations that came out of those studies. So as Councillor Houston said already, we talked about our Microsoft 365 migration, which we're still in the first phase of, flipping over to the second phase, and more to come on that. We've done our first implementation of our business continuity and disaster recovery plan with a tabletop exercise this fall with senior management. Cybersecurity mitigation initiatives. As you know, we had that workshop last week with all our staff and continue to work on that. IT governance committee was something that came out of the ITSR. So that's internally examining how we do things, not just by the seat of our pants, or somebody wants a new program initiated in their area. We're looking at the organization as a whole. So the committee is made out of representation from each department, and then collectively prioritize within the organization how to go about rolling out everything that everybody wants done with the resources we have. Not only the resources within my group, but the resources within the requesting department. We have to be cognizant of the fact that we can't do everything right away. We have to organize this effectively and efficiently and roll it out to that organization and in some cases to the public in a manner that examine corporately. And then that's developing the RFP. And again, I've already spoken to the survey. Again, out of the digital strategy, and in line with that, looking with the set of services and the management study, updating our trucks as we speak for anticipation of the winter season coming, with where the trucks are in the event of a snow event or a winter control event. Video surveillance is something that's cyclical. AV upgrades in all of our meeting rooms, and then launching of a corporate internet before the end of the year, we hope. Future projects, when the 2023 budget contemplates either a cloud strategy or a GIS strategy. The cloud strategy was something suggested in the ITSR as something we should look at as more and more of our applications go to the cloud. They're not on premises as much anymore. So by having others host our data and host our applications, there are a lot of boxes they have to tick to for us to allow that to happen. GIS strategy, as I mentioned, we're 22 or 23 years in the making, but without have done a lot without an official roadmap or 5-year plan or 10-year plan on GIS. So that's something that also came out of the ITSR. Working with finance on improvements to our financial solution. Again, that could be a possible cloud candidate for a cloud migration. Websites usually every 5 or 6 years, so we're due for a refresh in 2024. Something that always came out, a big recommendation of the digital strategy was a citizen online portal, so one-stop shopping online for our residents. Again, always looking at expanding our Wi-Fi for the public, working with Wade's group on the digital radio upgrade, and then coming back to council in the new year with the next steps for the customer service strategy once the manager is in place. Spin-off of that will also be the communication strategy. Corporate branding is due for an update. Social media policy, as that changes, it's due for an update. Cloud permitting with development services. And an HRIS is a study that's also underway. And as with the other groups, the next slides are information that we've provided to council via that portal and Teams. In addition to some bylaws and then many of the vendors that we deal with to assist us with deploying these initiatives. So I believe that's it, Your Worship, for technology and client services.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Ford. Any questions or comments to our IT director? Okay, thank you very much. Last but not least. People and culture.
Thank you. And good afternoon, Mayor and members of council. So essentially, in order to do all of this amazing work that you've been hearing about in the last couple of hours, we really rely on our greatest asset, and that truly is our people. So the People and Culture Department is focused on key people strategies and initiatives in order to ensure the success of our organization. And it is guided by a set of 3 guiding principles that you see here on this slide. So these principles essentially establish the foundation for our core objectives and action plans. And essentially, they are the development of a people strategy that sustains, collaborates, and engages and develops the culture of the organization, creates a work community where people thrive and performance excels, and it fosters an environment of leadership, inclusion, diversity, and ethical behavior. So in order to deliver our key objectives effectively, we follow a set of standards and commitments, which are outlined in this slide. And it essentially takes into consideration embracing our organizational culture, developing our human capacity, excelling at customer service delivery, expanding our social relationships, taking time to plan for the future, and making informed decisions. So the People and Culture team is responsible for a number of core initiatives and strategies that ensure the success of our employees and our organization. Some of those include implementing strategies to create an engaging and high-performing work culture that delivers best-in-class service, fosters an organizational culture, leadership capacity, and learning and development to support a very diverse and skilled and engaged workforce. Want to build the town's workforce capabilities and culture to raise the town's competitive edge. Support the organizational performance through workforce analytics, employee engagement initiatives, and governance. And the Director of People and Culture is also the key liaison to the Personnel Committee, a standing committee of council. So with respect to an overview of the organization, the people and culture team is focused on working in partnership and collaboration to deliver on the following primary functions. So labor and employee relations is a major part of what we do in the people and culture team. Workplace health, safety, and wellness. We deal with legislative compliance and ethics, culture development and transformation, and we support the Joint Health and Safety Committee and the town's Wellness Committee as well. Organizational and employee development, talent acquisition and retention. So this is all our recruitment initiatives from the whole life cycle of the employee, succession planning and career development, performance management, recognition and engagement, compensation and benefits, and the HR data and analytics, and the implementation of the HR information system, as Sean just mentioned previously. So the department, as you can see from this visual slide, there are three fundamental divisions of service, and our core services are represented in the three divisions. So that's strategic services, operations and compliance, and talent management. And some of those aspects that I just spoke to would fall into those three divisions of service. Some quick facts. So our total number of FTEs currently is 119 full-time equivalent employees, plus our voluntary firefighters. And we have 31 non-bargaining positions within those numbers. We have collective associations agreements, and we have 4 of those. QP 702.1, which is our outside workers, 702.2, the inside workers, 702.5, which is our part-time workers, and 702.13, our seasonals. And we also have our Tecumseh Firefighters Association agreement. Our total annual wages and benefits, 12.4 million. External and internal recruitment processes this year, a whopping 45 recruitment processes, which has kept us pretty busy over the year. Total number of formal investigations, we had 3. And the total number of formal grievances and arbitration, so these are actually formally going through process, is 5 this year. And our PNC annual budget, operating budget for 2022 is $525,000. So our departmental organizational chart represents a small but mighty team. So there's a director of people and culture, and as you can see there, the people and culture officer, our cooperative education student was actually combined 3 students every term. And then we have our adult and school crossing guards and our alternate adult school crossing guards, because PNC is also responsible for that currently. So based on our people strategy, which was established and presented to council this year, we have a number of initiatives we are focused on in the upcoming year. And some of these initiatives have already begun this year and continue on to 2023, and others will be initiated in 2023. So developing a leadership competency framework, and we apply that competency framework to performance management, job descriptions, recruitment, learning and development platforms. That is currently underway, and the performance management phase is actually complete this year. Developing and implementing leadership programs for directors, managers, and leads, and identification of high potential staff and mentorship for succession. We also we're looking at integrating coaching and mentoring objectives into performance management, and developing and delivering corporate learning and education platforms, which highlight a variation of things. One is raising the profile of the health, safety, and wellness initiatives with a focus on mental health education, which we began this year. For the prevention of harassment and discrimination in the workplace, promoting ethical conduct and respect in the workplace, and promoting the values of the organization through equity, diversity, and inclusion. We are also looking at implementing a new onboarding platform and have done some considerable work in laying the foundation for that this year, conducting an employee engagement survey at the end of 2023, and establishing reward and recognition strategy with a plan to roll out at the end of 2023 as well. We do have one outstanding negotiations and a collective agreement, and that is the collective bargaining negotiations for QP 702.13, which we'll be doing towards the end of this year into the coming year. We also want to focus on conducting a total compensation review to establish our employee value proposition, and this would include looking at a compensation strategy that is in totality. So benefits, remuneration, pension, as well as incentives. And looking at doing that throughout the year for 2023. So we'll be poised to actually put that in place for 2024. We're also looking at reviewing and amending a number of human resource policies or people and culture policies and ensuring appropriate practices and compliance. We have begun this process this year and introduced a couple of new policies as well, depending on legislation, which we're dependent on legislation. We want to establish and streamline HR legal processes and review legal documents and contracts. A significant amount of time was spent this year actually doing that and overhauling some of our legal contracts with respect to employment. Developing and maintaining strategic partnerships with recruitment firms and educational institutions, as well as other government bodies, is also a priority. We're evaluating and assessing people and culture operational capacity. And to this end, we have completed that operational capacity assessment and we'll be presenting our findings in the budget deliberations, in the upcoming budget deliberations, which will look to enhance the FTEs in the department. We want to shift benefits and pension administration to people and culture contingent on budget 2023 outcome. And we're also reviewing HRIS requirements and source vendors to implement the HRIS system subject to approval. And we're creating HR dashboards and specific metrics for the organization as well. So as you can see, it's quite a tall order for people and culture in the upcoming years, but all necessary foundational work that will assist the organization in establishing a culture and strategy that is focused on its employees and their success. So some of the, in addition to the legislation, obviously that provides parameters within which people and culture is required to work, the documents listed here can be found in the shared folder as well. So there's a number of policies outlined here. The people strategy, which was adopted by council in October 2022 for your reference, and also the trade union collective agreements as well for your reference. In the next few slides, there are also obviously a lot of the professional service providers that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And finally, the final slide, just my information, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so looking for a motion to receive all the reports. Council Tonio, Council Houston, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. No further business. Then adjournment's in order. Councilor Higginson, Councilor Dorner, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. This meeting is now adjourned, and thank you very much.
Okay, so I'm making the sauce now.